Thanks very much, Jennifer, and thanks to all the fellow people involved in this session. There have been a lot of very good discussion and overviews of the nickel sector. So Peter, first and foremost, putting on another terrific event, so full credit to the team. So we'll set the scene with Ardea Resources and our Kalgoorlie nickel project, which is a mega project. We heard Darren refer to over 1 million tonnes of contained nickel being required to classify a mega project. We've got 5.9 million tonnes of contained nickel. It is the largest nickel cobalt resource in Australia and the largest in the developed world. And deposits of this scale are a rarity. And during today's presentation, I'll give you an update on how the Ardea team are advancing this asset. So all the images on the cover slide here are relevant. Top left, we've got our premium goethite ore. It's easy for people to say, oh, we've got the best deposit of its type in Australia, but we have at our Goongarrie deposit because of the goethite. That's top left. And top right, we've got the cobalt sulfate crystals produced in 2018 pilot plant program. Bottom left, the nickel sulfate, and then our current base case flow sheet is around producing mixed hydroxide precipitate. That's a beautiful spearmint green colour we see in the bottom right, and we're also evaluating producing PCAM through our membership of the Future Battery Industries Cooperative Research Centre here in WA. Quick disclaimer. And the highlights of the project. So it's all about the scale, and it enables people to plan with decades in mind. We see around the world multiple companies investing billions and billions of dollars in building these gigafactories, but there hasn't been as much thought put into, well, where they're going to source the critical mineral supply, and that's where projects where the KMP can play such a key role. Our Goongarrie hub's only 70 kilometres northwest of Kalgoorlie. It is the best operating jurisdiction in the world. We've managed to maintain 100% of the offtake. There's been a great deal of interest in the offtake. We feel that's key, and any offtake needs to be linked to project development funding. Everything in our flow sheet is proven. We're up to the 5th generation of HPAL technology, and as you know, we consistently say to people in this space, it's a race to be second. You don't want to be using anything new and novel in a high-tech process plant. We completed feasibility study and an expansion study in 2018 that demonstrated robust economics. So what shapes a quality project? You can see the metrics here, but it's all about the jurisdiction, confidence in the resource, the amount of drilling and the people you've got undertaking your resource estimation, and obviously the financial metrics and the investability. So the KMP ticks all those boxes, and we're currently working on a updated PFS at a scale of 3.5 million tonnes per annum. We thought it important to increase the project scale in response to the rapid growth and future demand for nickel. So in terms of the supply chain, we've had some great commentary throughout the course of this conference, but the Chinese have really run a very strong race. They've been planning strategically. They've been doing it for decades. They dominate every aspect of the lithium-ion battery supply chain. But we see the rest of the world rapidly trying to play catch-up, and we see government incentives around the world. So the outlook for nickel has never been better. I'll just won't labour the point here. We're all aware of the key uses for nickel, but it's all about the battery future as the world transitions to that low carbon future, and it's been embraced right around the world. There's never been a better time to be involved in the nickel sector. And certainly, as you can see on the bottom right figure, the outlook for the price is a general appreciating trend. We've had people discuss inflation. The Inflation Reduction Act in the United States, and it's really interesting to note we've been talking to a number of potential partners for some time now, but there's been even more interest since the US brought in the IRA, and what it means is some of the largest nickel producers such as Indonesia, well, it's far harder to get that product into the United States, and it places Australia in a very strong position. The key point about this slide is that there just needs to be an expansion in resource project development, particularly key battery ingredients such as nickel and cobalt. So every resource needs to be developed. It's not a competition between different peer companies. All resources are going to need to be developed, and particularly those in great operating jurisdictions like Western Australia. Our location, as I mentioned, sort of half my career has been overseas and the other half in Australia, but WA is certainly by far and away the best place to operate, and the Eastern Goldfields is at the top of that list. So that's a key asset for us. All of our resources at Goongarrie, with our tenements shown on this image in red, are on granted mining leases. That gives us a huge head start, and you can see from this plan the infrastructure, Goldfields Highway, rail links to the deep sea port of Esperance and Fremantle on the west coast, and the gas pipelines just 30 kilometres to the east. So no, this very much is a brownfields project development. And just sort of a little bit more on the city of Kalgoorlie, Boulder and the Shire of Menzies, where our projects are located. We maintain a local office and a local team and have regular stakeholder engagement. I'm in Kalgoorlie on at least twice monthly basis, and yeah, it's just such a great place to operate. The image here shows the Great Western Woodlands, so that's what dominates the Eastern Goldfields, and that's one of our key assets. We know from at least the last 4 decades of mining, particularly from the gold industry, that this area rehabilitates well. We don't experience tailings disposal challenges that you'll see in the tropics, where you've got high rainfall to contend with. You've got multiple land users to contend with. There's potential rainforest habitat destruction. You've got seismic activity. We've got none of these issues here in the Eastern Goldfields. So that's a key asset for us. A little bit more now on the resource, which is the first and most important building block for every project. We're focusing our feasibility study work on this high-grade core at Goongarrie, this 78 million tonnes at 1% nickel and 0.07% cobalt. So that gives you a feel for the input grade, and we're desperately trying to update our ore reserve with our PFS due to be completed in the March quarter of next year. In terms of the project development, we're looking at 2 1.5 million tonne per annum autoclaves using 5th generation technology and a 500,000 tonne per annum atmospheric leach circuit. The beauty of the atmospheric leach circuit is that provides our power. It's basically an acid plant that produces power and produces nickel and cobalt, so there'll be very low carbon emissions involved in our production. So a little bit more about the geometry and the resource and why Goongarrie is the best-in-class deposit. The bottom right is the crumbly iron-rich goethite, and you can see some very high grades there. In terms of laterite deposits, they tend to be about 20 to 40 metres thick and sub-horizontal. In this instance, throughout parts of Goongarrie, we've had the Bardock tectonic zone, which is the northern strike extension of the Boulder-Lefroy fault, responsible for hosting all the gold in and around the city of Kalgoorlie, Boulder. So we've had preferential weathering on those subvertical structures. We've had Lake Goongarrie overlying the Goongarrie deposit some 60 million years ago. So we've had multiple movements in the water table up and down, and it's those factors that have resulted in the development of the best laterite deposit in Australia. And you can see with that geometry, it's going to be very amenable to conventional open pit mining with a very low strip ratio. The flow sheet now, so you can come and see us in the booth. Mike Miller will be more than happy to have a good chat to you about all things hydrometallurgy. But the key thing is everything in this flow sheet is tried and true and successfully utilised at existing operations. In terms of the HPAL technology, we've had companies like Sumitomo develop the Coral Bay operation in the Philippines and been operating very successfully and profitably for many years. In terms of the Indonesian HPAL project development, we're seeing an acceleration there, and reportedly the two last developments hit nameplate capacity within 3 to 4 months, which is an outstanding effort. We're looking to emulate those achievements, but obviously we've got the added advantage of being here in Western Australia. In terms of our carbon emissions, current feasibility study work puts it at 10 to 15 kilograms of CO2 emissions per kilogram of nickel produced. You can see from this figure that's on par with BHP Nickel West production. We're continuing to drive those emissions lower with in-progress feasibility study work, and it's significantly lower than the current nickel production from the majority of Indonesian operations. So, you know, in my mind, you can't say their production's either sustainable or ethical. In terms of what we're going to do to minimise our project footprint and impact on the environment, we're going to be returning the open pit voids to the Great Western Woodland at which we found them before mining commenced. We will pump our neutralised tails slurry into the open pits. It will dry out over several months, then it'll be dressed with waste rock, finally topsoil and revegetated, so it'll be a complete closed loop. In progress feasibility study work streams, as I mentioned, the key deliverable will be the March 2023 quarter, and we're working with quality partners such as Wood, Orlogy, ALS and Rockwater, and got a very strong, committed internal team. I want to say a little bit more today about our nickel sulfide exploration. So Ardea is in the enviable position of having over 4,200 square kilometres of tenure in the eastern goldfields. The majority of those tenements cover ultramafic stratigraphy. It's the ultramafics that weather to produce the laterite deposits, but the ultramafics are also prospective for hosting nickel sulfide mineralisation. So our tenements are very much underexplored for nickel sulfides. We announced the discovery of a Emu Lake nickel sulfide occurrence on the 14th of January this year. And the headline result there was just under 3 metres at 5.4% nickel with strong cobalt, copper and PGEs. We control 20 kilometres of strike on that prospective belt. There's both a western and an eastern komatiite belt, so there's a lot of exploration potential with historically just shallow drilling focused on defining laterite resources. So you can see some of the beautiful high-grade massive nickel sulfide there. Since that discovery was announced, we've completed 5,123 metres of diamond drilling. That's involved entering some of the historic holes and extending them further west to intersect the western ultramafic where we made our discovery. Historic holes didn't extend that far west. We've also closed the gap in between what we call Binti Gossan and Binti South. Binti Gossan was the subject to most of the historical exploration because it cropped out its surface. It was an easy target, but they didn't drill far enough west. We've also completed a hole a further 6 kilometres to the south, intersected very wide zones of ultramafic. We just finished the extensive downhole electromagnetic surveys. We've got the geological team led by Matt McCarthy undertaking a detailed interpretation, and we'll be providing a detailed market update on that in the coming weeks. And if you'd like to come and have a chat to Matt about that, please come and visit our booth. So just in closing, there's been numerous great presentations over the last 2 days about the strength of the nickel market, and just reiterate that there's never been a better time to be involved in nickel, and all resources must simply be developed to ensure there's sufficient supply. I've recently returned from an Austrade trip to India as part of the critical minerals delegation, and it just blew my mind the speed at which the Indian economy is moving, and in my opinion, all of the future forecasts for nickel demand are grossly underestimated. They're not factoring in India. It really blew my mind, their entrepreneurship and the rate at which they're moving. So, yeah, we're really just getting started in terms of the demand for battery minerals. We talked about the premium location. We're all lucky to be here in Western Australia today. The resource, we've got the premium goethite ore, but these massive deposits like the KMP that enable that long-term strategic planning are a rarity. The flow sheet, it's all 100% proven technology, and we've got a very dedicated team. We're only a team of 18. 40% of our team are female. We've got a local team in Cal. We're continuing to expand the business. We're well funded to continue that work, and each member of the board has lived and worked in the Eastern Goldfields of Western Australia. So if you'd like to hear more, come and visit the Ardea team, and thanks very much for your time.